François-Philippe Champagne is Canada's Minister of Industry, and he joins me now, as you can see, to discuss the deal to manufacture vaccines in Canada. Minister Champagne, great to see you again. Thanks for taking time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you and the whole CPAC team, I would say.
Okay, thanks for making time for us. There's some confusion today over when the vaccines could be produced at the facility in Montreal. The Prime Minister said late summer. You said end of the year. Which is it?
Well, it's very simple. This is a facility which we're retooling. As you know, we've announced back a few months ago that we were making significant investment at the National Research Council in Royal Mount to have a manufacturing facility. The big news is that Novavax, we found a partner which has a vaccine which is compatible with the type of manufacturing we have there. So it's very simple. You have a construction phase, which will be finished by the end of the summer. Then you have a certification phase by Health Canada, what we call the good manufacturing practice, which is consistent for all, plants that you would have in Canada, which wants to do biomanufacturing. And then you move to production. So that's why I said construction will be by the end of the summer. Then you have a buffer of a few months for certification, and no one can tell exactly because, as you know, this is an independent process.
I mean, so to be clear, there are no vaccines likely rolling off a production line before the end of the year.
Well, and let's not confuse things. So the contract we have with Novavax for more than 50 million vaccines, that continues.
Right.
This is different. This is about biomanufacturing in Canada. This is about resiliency. This is about bringing another pillar to make sure that Canadians, whatever may come next, that we will have our domestic biomanufacturing. We invested in Medicago in Quebec. We've invested in Abcellera in Vancouver. We've invested with Vido in Saskatchewan. What I'm trying to do and what we've been working on is to have many pillars to ensure that whatever may come, Canadians would have as much of the supply chain we need to make sure that we produce vaccine in Canada for Canadians.
But you've mentioned we'll be getting doses from Novavax that are not manufactured in Canada. But given the government's announced timeline of vaccinating all Canadians who want a vaccine by September, and we'll have to use imported vaccines for that, how would the Novavax vaccines be used if the vaccination campaign is already over?
Well, it's because one thing you assume there, Peter, is what's next? I mean, I think that it would be prudent, and your viewers would expect a government which is responsible to make sure that we have the domestic capability. We see new variants. We want to make sure that we are resilient for the future. And if it's not for COVID, we'll use them for other things. I think that, we start from a low base. Since 1980s, these companies have been leaving Canada, different governments, different decisions. But I think it's only normal, and I would say prudent, and certainly as Minister of Industry, trust me, I want to make sure that whatever may comes next, that we have as much of the domestic capabilities to produce it, that we will be reliant, whether it's about vaccines, whether it's about personal equipment, whatever might be critical to protect the health and safety of Canadians. We want to have it in Canada.
Your department's been in discussions with vaccine makers for months to make their vaccines in Canada without any luck until now. What special incentives did you provide Novavax to get them to set up in Canada?
Well, I would say, we've been in touch with many, and we continue. You know me. We'll make sure we speak to everyone.
Right, but did you provide them any special incentives to finally get them to say yes to the offer to set up in Canada?
Listen, I spoke to the CEO many times, and what makes Canada attractive in particular is the skilled workforce, stability, predictability. They've seen what Canada's been doing during this pandemic, and they were happy to partner with Canada. Obviously, we'll have to negotiate what may come next, but certainly what we have now, and that's the big news, because when I talked to the CEO, Peter, you have to know that they produce in about 7 or 8 countries around the world. They could have gone anywhere.
Right. So are you offering them any special financial incentives to set up shop here?
Well, we will certainly, and that's part of the negotiations to come, we will certainly be a financial partner with them. I think that Canadians understand this is about making sure we are resilient. And in times like that, we want to make sure that we would have the pillars of resiliency, that Canadians never find themselves again in a position where we started with a very low base when it comes to biomanufacturing. And we'll make the strategic investments today with a long-term vision to be resilient, to make sure that we create good jobs, because those are very, very good jobs, by the way, that we're going to be creating here. And also that we build all the supply chain. This is great. This is great for Canada. I mean, imagine Novavax chose Canada. They could have gone anywhere.
Okay, there have been calls in this country for domestic vaccine production for essentially since the pandemic began. Britain had virtually no domestic production, so it's set up to build its own, and it's doing that. What's taken so long for that to happen in Canada?
Well, the World Health Organization declared a pandemic on March 11, and in March 23rd, we made significant investment. Just look at Medicago in Quebec City. We've invested $173 million to speed up. This is like an Apollo project. These companies are working as quickly as they can to build a manufacturing. You look at Vido in Saskatchewan, same thing. You look at Accelera in Vancouver, same thing. So we've been, days after it was declared a pandemic, we have made the strategic investment. And what you saw today is yet an additional pillar to make sure that we have as many manufacturers as possible in Canada. There's different vaccine streams. The good thing is that the Novavax vaccine could be manufactured at the facility in Royal Mount. They were willing to work with Canada, and they are one of the leading candidates. You saw Pfizer, you saw Moderna, you saw Novavax supplying here in Canada. This is the great news. They decided to come to Canada, and we really want for Canadians to be resilient.
You touched on it. You touched on it in your comments a few moments ago that wasn't too long ago, and Canada did have a relatively vibrant manufacturing sector in pharma, but those companies have left. Do you see this now as the beginning of a rapid but intensive rebuilding process to put Canada back in that game?
Totally. And when you mentioned the United Kingdom, we started with a very different base. The United Kingdom had much more scale in terms of domestic capabilities. When the pandemic was declared, we scouted the Canadian market and looked at the producers and manufacturers, and we realized, like you said, since the 1980s, these companies have been leaving Canada, whether it's about supply chain, whether it's different governments, different policies. But we started from a very low base in terms of domestic manufacturing. That's why we needed to make these strategic investments to have domestic capabilities, and that's why we needed with the experts. We have the vaccine task force. We went to the best expert, the best mind in our country to say, where should we invest? How can we invest strategically so that these plants would come online as quickly as possible for Canadians? And people who are watching know that when you're building these plants, normally you're talking about 2-3 years. What we're doing in Royal Mount in months, that's really extraordinary to be able to go, because you're manufacturing vaccine. So that's quite significant when you look at the processes and the health and safety procedure. You need to respect, obviously, to protect the health of people.
François-Philippe Champagne, always good to speak with you. Thanks for your time tonight, Minister. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.